Well, hello, good evening, folks. Welcome to our AAPA Idea Talks. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Sandra, Sydney. Oh my gosh, wow. Thank y'all for joining us today. Hi, Michael. Super amazing. And, you know, we're always on time, right? I know that I always have a very punctual group that are popping in for these Idea Talks. I really appreciate y'all. I know this is a very important and exciting topic to dive a little deeper. And I'm excited to have, you know, our two speakers that are here with us today, and I'm excited for y'all to hear from them. Hello and welcome. And yeah, I like to also have the screen of what you're popping into, so you know that you didn't click on the wrong Zoom link, right? So here we are. It is our AAPA Idea Talks, Explore the Possibilities. And today we're talking about careers that fulfill your passion for clean energy and sustainability. So we're all super excited to have that type of conversation and to dive deeper on that. So you'll notice once you're popping in here that you are on mute. So I always want to make sure that we are on mute. We have been in a pandemic for a year, so most folks are familiar with Zoom, but I also want to be mindful of folks who don't always use Zoom, and there are tons of other platforms. So I just want to let you know that you have your tools and your little toolbar at the bottom. You have your mute. Please kindly stay on mute. And even if you are by yourself in a very quiet room, sometimes there's some feedback. So I just want to make sure that you do place yourself on mute. And we actually will have a Q&A portion at the end. So, you know, you'll be asked to either pop your questions in the chat, which you'll also see the little chat box at the bottom. So share your thoughts with us, check in with us through the chat. I'll be monitoring that. And then as you know, our session goes on, we always welcome questions that we can answer during our Q&A portion. So you can always pop those questions into the chat box and we'll monitor that as well. So again, welcome folks to our AAPA Idea Talks. Today we're exploring the possibilities of careers that fulfill your passion in clean energy and sustainability. My name is Karen. I am the Programs Director with AAPA, the Asian American Professional Association, and I'm so super excited to have you all joining us today. So I'm gonna move forward as folks are trickling in. I wanna let y'all know what we're going to be doing today. So this is what our discussion looks like. We're gonna start with some welcome. So that's me, Karen, welcoming you in. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go over some community agreements. We'll have a little brief introduction. Our speakers are gonna dive deep into this topic. And then we're gonna have a Q&A like I've mentioned, and then I wanna share some closing resources. So super excited to get started with you all today. Thanks again for being here. Just some quick community agreements. So we always wanna foster a space for others, right? Share the space and be kind to yourself and others, right? We're all learning, nobody's perfect. I actually don't like that term perfect, and I usually say practice makes progress because there's no such thing as perfection. So practice makes progress, and be curious, right? So we're all here, we all wanna learn more. We're very curious, right, about the discussion that's gonna happen today. So keep an open mind and an open heart, right? And then if someone says intrigues you, interests you, try it on, right? Take what you learn and apply it in a way that feels good to you. So I welcome any community agreements that you would like to add. If you want to pop that into the chat, you can go ahead and do so. I see folks checking in the chat already. So hello and welcome. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Pabrisha. Thanks for checking in the chat. Hi, Francis. So I welcome those. Please add that in there. It does help us. And I do want to mention that we are in heightened emotions right now, right? There's a lot going on in our community, in the world right now. And, you know, I know myself, it's been a very overwhelming week and there's been a lot of emotion. So I do want to remind, you know, ourselves to be kind to one another and to, yes, share the space. And, you know, that I appreciate you all taking the time to pop in and share this space with us. You know, part of what I'm very grateful for is that we are finding spaces in this community to lift each other up in any way, shape, or form. And this is part of how we're taking action, right? We're creating spaces where we can lift each other up. We're having conversations where we can help one another in, you know, different areas of our lives. So I truly appreciate you all being here. And, you know, I'm very thankful to be a part of AAPA. So who are we, right? So there are some names of folks that are guests that I haven't seen before. So thank you all for joining us. Yes, hi, David. And I hope everyone's having a great day. Thank you, Erica. That is true. So I want to introduce AAPA to the folks who aren't familiar with who we are. We have 3 main programs and opened up a 4th one this year. So our signature program is our mentorship program, where you receive one-on-one mentoring through our experienced network of mentors. We do have a board leadership program. That's where we essentially provide you training of how to be a board member of a nonprofit board. So that's exciting. And then we have our own Toastmasters Club, where you become a public better speaker and develop your communication skills. And this year we've launched our IdeaTalks. So this is what you're tuning into right now, is an IdeaTalks, and they're virtual discussions with our community on topics that are important to you. So we try to listen, we do our best to be active listeners, to our community, for our community. And, this topic was a relevant topic that our community let us know, hey, we want a discussion about STEM. We want a discussion about, clean energy and sustainability. So here we are providing that to you. So this is what our IdeaTalks are. And this is how you keep in touch with us, right? So we're on social media. So follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel, and we have our own website. And you see the little QR code there. That's our QR code with all the links. So if you just actually take your phone camera and you hover over that QR code, you'll get all the links to everything that I have listed here. And I do want to mention that we are on open enrollment right now. So if you're wanting to find mentoring, be a board leader, sometimes I think faster than my mouth can follow. So we have open enrollment right now. So if you're interested in mentoring or learning more about our board leadership program, Toastmasters, or any of our other programs, go ahead and click on those links and sign up, because it is open enrollment right now. So that's AAPA, and I have the honor of introducing our amazing speakers for today. Super excited, so dive deep, y'all. Again, these are insights and discussions with our community members that are going to be sharing their personal stories or personal insights on these topics. So take notes, highly recommend that. And I'm super excited to listen in and dive deeper with Rachel, who's a co-founder of Project Cyber, and Vibhu, who's the director of transmission and distribution of business strategy at Southern California Edison. And they're both going to have this very in-depth discussion with one another. And that's what I really like, is for them to really dive deeper, right, into this discussion. So take notes, and I'm super excited. And Rachel, Vibhu, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to watch my pace. I have the same issue. Sometimes I think faster than I speak, and I catch up on my words as well. And it's a lot of lovely opportunity to be here at AAPA. Thank you for inviting me over and being part of this panel with Rachel. So I'll just introduce myself a little bit into this, and then pass it on to Rachel. Currently lead our business strategy division for transmission and distribution operating unit in Southern California Edison. It's transmission distribution is almost 70 to 80% of our company, 90% of our capital, so about 8,500 people. My group is about 100 people, very diverse, engineers, project managers, regulatory folks, people with finance backgrounds, people who work on performance management, business strategy, and diverse from ethnic perspective, gender diversity, pretty well balanced group. Been fortunate to lead in this role for the last couple of years, been with Edison for over 10 years. I am a first generation immigrant. I call myself a global citizen. I'm the guy with the driving license from California, a passport from Canada, and a birth certificate from India. So I have family all over the world. I was born and raised in India, and figured out during high school that I wanted to be an engineer. I was truly fascinated by physics and mathematics, and was the first engineer in my family of mostly lawyers and politicians. So it wasn't really an obvious popular choice, but eventually I guess that's what I was meant to be, to go into the STEM field. And after my bachelor's there, worked in India, in Mumbai for a couple of years, moved to Canada for my master's in engineering. On my own, I was 22 with just an admission letter and a full scholarship, 2 suitcases and $1,500 of savings, and a lot of dreams to chase. So can relate to the first generation immigrant story, or how folks come into a different culture and adapt to it. Lived in Canada for 8 years, worked for a big utility up there after my master's, and then moved to LA end of 2010. So past 10 years in Los Angeles. Also pivoted my career over the time from engineering to management, and did a MBA at Anderson. So go Bruins. I know Rachel is Bruin as well. Yeah. Anyways, looking to connect with you all, and I want to hear, I want to give it to Rachel to introduce herself and share a bit about her too. Rachel?
Thanks, Vibhu. Hi, everyone. I am Rachel Kim Berner, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. So unlike Vibhu, who knew early on that he wanted to be an engineer and would, likely have a career in STEM of some sort, that was not me. Actually, my career path in technology has really been a series of unexpected opportunities or happy accidents. My college degree at UCLA, go Bruins, was in international economics. I had a minor in classics, like classical civilizations, like Greek and Roman stuff, right? And a career in technology was not on my radar. I didn't even dare to think that I could have a career in technology. So I had a part-time job at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, during my senior year in college, actually in their recruiting department. And I just expected that I would move into a full-time role after I graduated. But they gave me this opportunity to join their technology management consulting team. Of course, I didn't feel qualified. I didn't have a technical or engineering degree like the other candidates, but I knew that I wouldn't get a chance like this. This was really kind of a once in a lifetime chance. And it wasn't just off of nothing. I think this is something I know more in hindsight, was that the management team there had seen me work, right? So they knew what they were getting with me, to a degree, and they knew that they could train me, right? They knew that there were hard skills that were trainable that they could train me on. So knowing that I wouldn't get a chance like this, I figured I'm going to go for it and see how it goes. And so I took that leap of faith, and my career in technology began. So I had a few very dynamic years at PwC, learning about technology implementations, and eventually leading technology implementations for various clients and projects before I joined a company that was eventually acquired by Bank of America a few years later. So the following kind of almost 19 years at Bank of America was full of a lot of career growth and opportunities in various technology roles. I really have played in all sorts of technology roles, project management. I've led development teams, data management teams, on and on. And eventually kind of landed in our information security organization about 6 years ago. I was ready to do something a little bit different. I had been kind of in this mortgage business oriented space. I wanted to move into a role that was more enterprise impacting. And I went out and tapped my network to see what opportunities were out there. And I landed in information security and cybersecurity. And so I've been in cybersecurity for the last 6 years, most recently served as the business information security executive for cloud computing. I'm actually currently in transition to a cybersecurity organization with another financial institution. So I'm actually on what we call a garden leave. So it's a little bit of a break when you move from one company to another. So I'm doing that. But all in all, I didn't end up in cybersecurity by design. I didn't plan for it. I didn't plan for my career to end up here. My career path has really been a result of saying yes to opportunities that came my way, to take chances on myself, and really knowing what I brought to the table, technical or not, hard skills, soft skills, all of it. So while I landed in cybersecurity, kind of not by design, I do intend to stay focused on cybersecurity, at least for the next phase of my career, for the foreseeable future. And one key way that I'm doing that is through the nonprofit that I co-founded called Project Cyber, which has a mission to inspire and empower females of all ages. And our current focus is on middle and high school girls to succeed in the field of cybersecurity. So we're planting some of those seeds now.
Awesome. So one thing I've learned about Rachel and realized for both of us is Rachel is so passionate about cybersecurity. I have a lot of passion for clean energy. So let's dive deep into that. And by the way, I've never seen somebody make cybersecurity look so cool and so fancy as Rachel does it. So Rachel, share us your passion. Where does that come from, and how we got into it?
Yeah. So I told you I joined the information security organization at Bank of America about 6 years ago. Actually, I ended up starting the week after the Sony Pictures hack or cyber attack. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was that Seth Rogen movie about the interview and, North Korea, like all of that, right? So it was a really high profile cybersecurity incident that now lay people, not just the cybersecurity people, but lay people learned about, knew about. And it was this moment in time where it made everyone stop and think, like, could that happen to me? Could that happen to my company? Could that happen to my business? Like, whether you had a small business or a large company, like, everyone was stopping and thinking about it. So the thing that really resonates with me is that cybersecurity risk and threats impact everybody. So all of us as individual consumers, as users of the internet, of internet connected devices, our phones, everything, as parents, or people who care for other, loved ones, as employees at companies, as management of companies, or maybe we own a company or run a company, it really impacts everybody. It's not just in the domain of like that hoodie wearing hacker or security geek, right? So the notion that everyone needs to understand what cybersecurity threats and risks are, how they can be impacted by it, how their actions can introduce risk, right? Can open doors to bad people, how to manage those risks, how to prevent threats from causing harm to our livelihood or to our business. I think because my path to cybersecurity was not traditional, because I wasn't I wasn't following that path from high school all the way on, I'm really interested in how non-cyber people interact with and need to manage cybersecurity risk. I come from it from that point of view. And really, at the end of the day, there's never a dull day. If you work in cybersecurity, there is never a dull moment. It is intense, it is challenging, it is fun. So you can't help but be passionate about it, because you kind of have to bring your all, to every day. And I think the other piece that I really, really feel very strongly about is in cybersecurity, you have to have strong, diverse talent. The bad guys they do not fit a standard profile. So just kind of building teams around that, around kind of diverse backgrounds, is really something very important to me. And again, the nonprofit that we have is to help build the pipeline of bringing more women into the field, and certainly a passion project of mine. The other piece that I'll just kind of leave you guys with is that there's an estimated 3.5 million unfilled roles in cybersecurity. So there is an incredible amount of demand or need, and there is short supply for cybersecurity talent. And we'll talk in a bit actually about how you might be able to kind of find yourself in cybersecurity like I did, through your experience and through the skill set that you already have. But, you just take all of those pieces together, and how do you not get excited about it? So what about you, Vibhu? I mean, I know you have, and we've talked a little bit as well, you have passion for clean and sustainable energy. And this is another area that really impacts everybody. So I'd love to hear about you and your passion.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rachel. I was just recovering from all the cyber passion and that aura of light that was coming from you. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time to be able to make a difference. I love Los Angeles. Have been here for the past 10 years. Very similar to the city of New Delhi I grew up with. A lot of diversity, melting pot in cultures, and by the way, beautiful 300 days of sunshine and coastline. Now, having all that, one thing that that's kind of a bummer and disappoints is the air quality in Los Angeles and how bad it can get here because of the carbon emissions, which, by the way, the biggest source of those carbon emissions is from the vehicles, from transportation sector. So California as a whole, in the entire calendar year, have something like 500 million metric tons of CO2 carbon emissions that are emitted. And that's just California. Think about the world. 40% of that comes from our transportation needs, from you and I driving everybody drives in LA, and LA has more cars than people. These are facts. Californians, 36 million Californians drive 26 million light duty vehicles, burning billions of gallons of gasoline every day. But that's 40% of it. Then there's electric power, remaining about 19% of it. There's building and space heating, generating carbon emissions, all of these emissions. And you look at it on a global scale, we have an opportunity to clean it up, reduce our carbon footprint. Edison is very committed to pathways to 2045, a zero carbon electric grid. And we think it's not just about our electricity and appliances usage to use that zero carbon energy. You can also use it to then power your transportation needs using electric vehicles with zero emissions. So, and for your space and building heating and cooling needs. So electric utilities have a role here in trying to deeply decarbonize and solve this problem of bad air quality for California. I'm really passionate about it. I think it goes back to just my growing up in India. I mentioned I come from a family of lawyers and politicians. And when I was in like a little boy, 6, 7-year-old, my grandfather was chairman of a state electricity board or electricity commission back in India. So with him, I visited some of the power plants and never thought I'll end up in that field. But after I kind of took the tangent to become the first engineer in family, and I tried a few things with a couple of years of software coding, and then with Boeing Canada, a little stint. I eventually found myself back in the energy and electric utilities sector, and it just kind of resonated with my soul, where I can make a lasting long-term impact into something so relatable that impacts our lives every day. It's something I try to make a little bit broader impact where I can. So one of the things I do is volunteer with the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and U.S. energy agencies, in trying to provide some expertise and support on a volunteer basis to some of the developing countries where they're trying to make an impact, which are also, there's a lot of carbon emissions from India, other parts of Asia. I've done short trips with them to not just the Asian countries, but also Colombia and other things in Japan, Australia, and Korea. So globally, I feel like all of us are in this together and trying to leave this planet better, reduce our carbon emissions through more renewables, electric vehicles, energy storage, which, by the way, requires a modern transmission electric grid, transmission and distribution, something which can absorb two-way power flows, something that can provide the infrastructure for us to charge our vehicles. So that relates back to the technology in hardware and software and control systems, which needs to be cyber secure, and be able to have the right policy outcomes, be able to have the right strategy and the right funding. So all of these things come together. Like Karen is a lifelong cyber and IT professional, what she said, I see myself always in clean energy, because I feel like this thing won't be solved in, it's going to take at least a couple decades to get to a meaningful change where we continue to clean our grid and get closer and closer to that zero carbon vision by 2045. And there are plenty of career opportunities, by the way, in STEM, and clean energy seems to be a very, very big generator of jobs and careers for STEM careers, and for others to pivot into some of these careers through non-technical backgrounds. So that's kind of my thing, Rachel.
Yeah, and so I'd love to jump off of that last point that you just made, because you were talking about roles in clean energy and the need that there is, right? You mentioned strategy. I heard finance. I heard project management. Policy management, and on and on. So, again, we've heard from you over the last few minutes just the impact that the work that you do has and can have and will have, and just the opportunities that can provide for people with different backgrounds. So can you talk a little bit about how the folks on this call may want to navigate their career into your space, into the energy space?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Rachel. So the area I lead today, business strategy, is pretty exciting, very multidisciplinary. We'll get deep into the strategy, setting our goals, managing performance of the entire organization against those goals. It gets deep into analytics, We get into financial planning, so we need folks with budgeting, financial analysis, really good project managers with problem solving and communication skills to be able to lead and bigger meetings and influence, think strategically and create a pathways on how projects could proceed. I also have the regulatory management function where we need folks who can really write well and read fast on hundreds of pages of regulatory testimony. So these are some of the functions where you do not need an engineering career. You don't need to have a STEM background. You could have you could come from practically bachelor's in any of those broad disciplines, but have some transferable skills that could come from any of the industries in regulatory or compliance, or having worked in strategy or finance, and be able to come into the energy industry, start with a role, get into the role, but start learning the business and branch out to network with folks. Edison is a great place where it's a community, a lot of support resources, and then build into, if you feel that's where your passion lies, into clean energy, you could make an impact. I always joke and say you can have so many different careers within an electric utility or a clean energy company like Edison. In the past 10 years, I've been there. I've had more than 10 bosses and so many job titles I can't even count. And I think that's the beauty of it, that in terms of career opportunities, there is so much you could do. And there's so many transferable skills that people sometimes may not think about. They may not go to the job boards and read through them and think that they will be able to make an impact. Sometimes I think it's an Asian thing as well. I was going to connect to that at some point. I feel like at least my parents were that way. Growing up, it was like, make sure you prepare for something really well, and before you raise your hand or put your thing out there, make sure you really qualify for it. And that meant to me 9 out of 10 things must have to meet the criteria, not 6 out of 10, then I'm going to embarrass myself. So it's really those core values of hard work and dedication, but then being able to also think through networking and transfer those and be able to market yourself, that could help in transferring into some of these opportunities. How about you, Rachel? How about in cybersecurity? Yeah.
Yeah, I see so many parallels to what you just described, right? So similarly, we have a lot of need. There are impacts to laws, rules, and regs globally, right? That impact cybersecurity programs and how organizations need to comply, especially in regulated industries, project management, on and on. I think most people think of cybersecurity as a very technical field. And while we certainly work to protect and secure digital assets and information, there are a variety of roles needed in mature and robust cybersecurity organizations, technical and non-technical. So, some examples of technical roles are things like, that most people may kind of relate to cybersecurity, like security analysts. They're monitoring and they're looking for, are there cyber attacks happening? Are there any threats that need to be addressed? We have penetration testers who are, trying to test out systems to see if there are any vulnerabilities. We have forensic analysts who are collecting evidence in the case that there is a breach. Software engineers who have to build cybersecurity solutions. But there are also some non-technical roles as well in cyber, and very similar to what you were describing, Vibhu, in terms of program and project managers to implement cybersecurity solutions, to pull people together, to plan. We need to establish strategy as well, strategic plans, because the environment is ever changing. So how do you stay on top of that, right? Technology is changing, the threats are changing on a daily basis. Policy management, what is an internal organization's cybersecurity rules and requirements, and how do you ensure that everyone understands their role and how they need to meet those requirements? Public policy, again, laws, rules, and regs that impact your organization. Another one, communication and education, right? So in any organization, managing cybersecurity risk, as I mentioned earlier, is not limited to the cybersecurity team. It's every employee. Employees need to be educated and aware of, don't click on a random link that you got in your work email, or if someone calls or someone sends you an email and it seems like it's your boss and they're telling you to do something unusual, like, check it out. Don't just do it, right? So these things that you need to educate your employees on as well, that takes people with talent and skill in teaching, in communicating, in presenting things verbally and presenting things in written form so that it can be consumed. So there are so many different types of skills that we need. And so, for someone who wants to break in, and I'm echoing what you were saying, Vibhu, look at the job postings. Even if it seems a little bit kind of out of the ordinary, read through them and identify where you have skills and experience that may transfer. And I say may transfer. It may not exactly fit the bill, but that's okay. You can take that leap sometimes, right? And then highlight that in your resume. It is not unreasonable to tailor your resume for every job that you apply for. It doesn't have to be the same resume, right? And so make sure that that resume kind of speaks to those job requirements that you see represented in your conversation with the recruiter or in the job posting that you see, and fit that into your interviews. It may not, again, be that exact fit, but think about how something may transfer in your experience. And as I mentioned before, like, hard skills are teachable, soft skills are not. Hiring managers are they're homing in on that more and more and more. Right. So they're looking for people who will be good fits for their teams, good fits for their organizations, who will add to kind of the dynamic, not take away from. So, remember that as well. And then I don't know, Vibhu, if there are resources in the energy space as there are in cybersecurity, but if you really have like zero cybersecurity background, but it sounds like something you're interested in, or maybe you have a little bit, there are some really kind of established cybersecurity frameworks that you can just go online and find. NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, they have a pretty well adopted cybersecurity framework, and there are others out there. There are several certification programs, and then the training that comes with those certification programs that you can take, books and all that you can study. There are organizations that you can join, networking organizations, and you can actually even now get a master's program in cybersecurity. So there are a lot of ways to go out and seek out ways to learn about cybersecurity. If you want to go into, if you want to kind of dive in all the way. But I do think that there are also ways to enter the field of cybersecurity with the experience and skills that you already have. And I certainly encourage people to do that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That reminds me, I think both of these are so emerging. There are more and more clean energy programs. Yesterday, I was doing a mentoring with someone, a friend of mine. His daughter is in first year at Berkeley, and she seems already so sorted out. She wants to do a dual major with clean energy emphasis and on computer science. And I've never met somebody like who has figured out so much what they want to do. She had read everything on Edison website for this 30-minute mentoring session with me. And she was just asking me about resources on how she can get into this industry. So it reminded me of that chat, Rachel. Yeah, there's universities are building clean energy programs. There's definitely research centers, policy centers. This is at Haas and Berkeley. We're getting them early also. Reminds me also 2 years ago, my daughter who's in fifth grade, starting fifth grade back then, now she's completing sixth, so almost getting into seventh. One day she showed me a class assignment, and they were working on this town somewhere needs to meet their energy needs, and they could install wind turbines to meet it. But then initially the cost is this, but there's no fuel cost because wind is free and there's no carbon. Or they can run their coal and natural gas, which are they're cheaper, but then you keep paying for the fuel, and then there's a carbon dollar amount. It's like, which grade are you? She's like, fifth grade. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Fifth grade, they're teaching you all this, and she's coming up with conclusions that long-term wind makes sense, but in short term, it looks like, I'm like, what? I was so
That's fantastic. I bet you got such a kick out of that.
Oh, yeah. I wrote a letter to her teacher. I'm like, you know what? This was the coolest thing I've ever seen any fifth grader And she replied on the email. She's like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm so passionate about clean energy." So she invited me to come over and do a talk with the class, and I gave them some solar powered grasshoppers and other things. And anyways, they're trying to get them early and early, so everybody has more awareness into the clean energy space. But Rachel, you got me thinking about, like, we talked about career opportunities, how folks could come in. That's really important to build diversity in our teams as well. What we don't is 50 Vibhus in Vibhu's team and 50 Rachels in Rachel's team, though. I know that'll be pretty awesome to have 50 Rachels, but you do want thought diversity and different. So what do you do to build that in your area? What are some of the things that are working so that, we have 24 people online, they probably have different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. Everyone could be part of.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start by saying, like, workforce diversity is a security imperative. Like, when you're thinking about cybersecurity, information security, you have to ensure that you have a diverse workforce tackling it. The threat actors, they are not homogenous, right? They do not fit a standard, cookie cutter profile at all. They're nebulous. They come from all different angles. Some are nation state, some are individual, some are, part of hacktivist groups, etc. So we have to have people on kind of the protection and defense side who are really thinking in all sorts of different angles so that we can stay ahead of the attackers. We can't be behind the ball, right? And so that requires people with, different educational background, right? If you only have, let's say, computer scientists, you're going to miss something. We need people with different socioeconomic backgrounds. We need neurodiversity. And of course, gender, we want gender balance and parity, and we need racial and ethnic diversity as well. But really all of this it's a security imperative. Like, it's not just a nice to have, or it's not just something for the broader social good. And I think people really need to understand that, that it is going to strengthen your security program. And so for me personally, when I'm hiring, I'm certainly looking to ensure that I have a diverse candidate pool. I'm also asking people in my diverse network, so people who come from all different walks of life, for referrals and connections to candidates. And that's always nice to have a referral, right, when you're trying to hire. But what I've found, though, is that I do end up with a really nicely diverse talent set. And I think because of those kind of referrals, you might get that person who probably maybe wouldn't have applied for the job on their own. And I've really, seen some strong people come in and strong teams being developed. And then, of course, with cyber, we need to build the talent pipeline because we have such a big, job gap to fill. And so, like the work that I do with the nonprofit Project Cyber, really trying to get kids and girls at middle and high school age, we're really trying to plant those seeds so that, I don't know, when I was in middle, of course, it was a different time then. It was, eons ago, but I wasn't thinking about cybersecurity. I wasn't even thinking about computer science or technology then. But how cool if someone had just come and been like, this is a field and it's kind of cool and you can do fun things. And like, you like solving puzzles? Well, all we do are solve puzzles. Like, you like, sending secret messages? Well, look, there's a whole field in cryptography. Like, it's pretty, just kind of making those connections for kids, for the youth. Is really a great way to start to build that pipeline too. And that's not just for cybersecurity, it's for STEM, it's for energy, right? It's just, kind of planting those seeds and getting the word out. But you also have, a large organization that you manage, and it sounds like it's a very diverse and gender balanced team. How did you achieve that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Rachel. I think, it took some steps. It is I will say electric utilities, STEM careers, engineering are generally a male-dominated field. I feel pretty fortunate and feel good about the fact that in T&D business strategy, my organization, about 90 plus people, we have all kinds of diversity of people come from all kinds of skill set. My direct report senior leadership team is pretty well gender balanced. I think we're
That's
about half and
important.
half. Yeah, half and half.
Yeah.
Actually, I think one extra females are more in percentage. So is in the broader leadership team. But I think it starts with us taking a conscious step and making sure, to your point, Rachel, that hiring panel is diverse. Where we get candidates from, we are looking at all diverse sources, not just like one traditional way to look for things where people are going to just apply. So then we are only looking at people who feel confident enough to apply online and not really using the network or reaching out to the employee resource groups groups like AAPA or SN. We have we have like 17 ERGs and BRGs, business resource groups and employee resource groups in Edison. So advertising it to the diverse groups. Then I think building diversity is a piece of it, but unless you balance it with inclusion, diversity for sake of diversity doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as quickly you built it, you're going to lose it. So really, I feel like as leaders, our job is first and foremost, like not have biases. Everyone thinks a certain way based on how they were raised, the cultural values they developed, things they learned, emotional memories of world events and where they were during those events. And then there's professional skill set we learned during school and college that we layer on top of it, on top of our beliefs, and that becomes our overall personality with some career preparation we do with polishing. But as you really work together under pressure, all of those things come out. So making your team really feeling accepted, that you provide a safe an environment where everyone with different beliefs and thoughts and backgrounds is welcome. You give them a chance to truly express themselves and hear them out, and that everyone can bring best of their education and professional experience and make an impact. It's not about a certain set of things are okay, set of things are not okay. I'll give you an example. And by the way, utilities are seen that way since they're over 100 years old. So there's a certain set of like cultural values that even generational exist there, from baby boomers on show up early on work. It's like 6 a.m., be the first one there and do a lot of work till 8. And people who show up early were seen as they are the most hard workers, right? Whereas I think if you go into Gen X, Gen Y, and millennials prefer more flexibility. And I think for a gender balanced team, women may have different needs than men. And it's not that anybody has any more. I think everyone has different needs. So anybody thinks they don't, they're mistaken. And one thing I believe COVID has done in working from home, it has leveled the field so everyone is able to dial into 6 a.m., 7 a.m. and people who need time break during middle of the day, or they are able to carve it out. And I hear this from some of the female leaders in my team. They feel like the ground is more level. They're making a bigger impact. More of them are getting promoted. We need to think about that as we go back to return to work into a hybrid or more of an in-person environment. How do we continue to provide that flexibility if somebody needs to drop kids in the morning before they come to work, if they have middle of the day obligation, or they need that 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. They can do meetings, but they can do deliverables after. So providing that inclusive environment where everyone feel like they can truly perform at their best and deliver to the organization around their other commitments, maintain their balance, and they be accepted. They feel accepted and respected for their own beliefs. I feel that's really, really important as a leader. That's something I believe a lot of Edison leaders do from the culture, and something we emphasize a lot on. But that has certainly helped in having more diversity and balancing it and providing that environment.
Yeah, and that really resonates with me, because I think diversity without inclusion is disingenuous, and people see that. You feel it, right? You know it, and it's not where you want to work. And everyone wants to contribute and feel that they're, adding something. But I find it fascinating about, what you were saying in terms of, the playing field kind of being leveled with everyone at home, it just makes you think about what are those barriers, what are those biases that we end up actually facing when we're in person in the office together that create some of those blockers, I guess for women, right? And because you were saying the women feel like they're able to contribute, feel valued, they're getting promoted, so they're getting recognized, obviously. So it's really fascinating. I think every organization is going to have to think about that as they slowly return back to whatever the new normal is going to be.
Yeah, no, well said.
Yeah. So, okay, so I think we're going to wrap up this discussion and get ready for Q&A. So Vibhu, what are some takeaways that you want our audience to take with them today, especially those who want to, make a career pivot into energy?
Wow, yeah, let's boil it down. Maybe set it up for some Q&A and hopefully some interesting, spicy questions and engagement. Key takeaways, I would say, clean energy is like so important. This planet was started with clean air. We got to take it back to clean air. It's a problem we created. We got to solve it. So that's the overall global thing. And society as a whole is getting more and more dependent on electricity today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We have more appliances, more interconnected devices in our house, and we have less and less tolerance for a power outage. So we need resilient grid, we need reliability, and we want from greenhouse gas emissions free, carbon free. If that mission, if that passion resonates with something you want to be a part of, everyone can make an impact. It's not an industry where you need a certain qualification or you need a certain kind of skill set or a certain network to be able to get in. It's a clubhouse. No, it's everyone can be a part of it. It's like you said, similar to cyber, the opportunities are growing overall in clean energy. Hopefully this some of the things we shared about STEM and clean energy and how there are so many opportunities that resonates with folks. Take in charge, use the resources, use AAPA mentoring, connect with the folks, and find your pathways, map where you are, where you want to go, make some steps, and try to make a conscious effort. I have so much respect for folks who take that mission. And we all fail at times, we succeed at times. That's not important. The fact that we take affirmative action to do some things to try and achieve what we want to do is so important. So I'll pass it back to you. What are some of the takeaways you want to give?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a lot about kind of identifying your transferable skills, and so that takes some introspection. It takes a moment to I would encourage people to just carve out some time to kind of take inventory of your skills, read through your current resume and see what pops out as skill sets you have, and think about how you may elaborate on them, how you may connect them with with jobs that you might be interested in, energy and cybersecurity and something else. And so I think taking that time to identify those transferable skills, and then as job opportunities come up or as you see job postings, making those connections, practicing your interviewing, right? Practicing how you can articulate how your background, how your skills connect to the job. Have someone look at your resume, make sure that pops out as well, right? So I think just kind of preparing yourself for these conversations where you're going to have to, convince someone that you have these skills. Now, apply to the roles, even if you don't meet all the qualifications. And Vibhu, you talked about how, maybe culturally we may be a little bit more hesitant to apply for jobs where we don't meet all of the qualifications. And we certainly have seen research and studies that there's a gender difference there as well, that generally, these are all generalizations, women won't apply for jobs unless they feel they meet 100% of the qualifications, whereas men apply at the 60% level. I mean, again, generalizations, but apply, take the interview, what could go wrong? Ask for the money when you're negotiating. Actually, I told you I'm currently kind of taking a new position, and I hadn't interviewed like this in 20 years, and I was at a very different place, 20 years ago than I am today. And I really had to kind of get my head in this space of, how should I be negotiating? And how should I be approaching these conversations? And again, kind of had to carve out the time and think through it and position myself for it, get into that mindset. Because what could go wrong? Everyone here is talented. There's something to bring. If it doesn't work out, then it probably wasn't the right place for you, and that's okay. Right. And so I think it's just, know yourself and know how you connect to these opportunities out there and make sure that translates. And then definitely take advantage of organizations like AAPA, where you can tap into a network, and you can tap into people who represent all different industries, different points in their career. You can learn from them, and you can maybe even teach them, and strengthen and bolster your own career development through organizations like AAPA.
Thanks, Rachel. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll pass it back to Karen and see if now is a good time to get into. We can keep going, Karen, if you want to. We two of us can keep going for the next 3 hours.
I definitely know you can. And thank you so much for this very in-depth and personal conversation so far. I want to give you all a round of applause. And, folks want to utilize your little applause reactions down below for our two speakers, Rachel and Vibhu. Thank you so much for diving deep. And I know we got some questions. So thank you so much, for touching on this subject, raising some questions for folks. And actually, I had a few questions where I was like, So I want to, give space for, of course, for the folks who asked some questions earlier. So Sydney had a really good question, Rachel, when you were talking about hard skills. Sydney asked, what type of hard skills do you utilize in the field of cybersecurity?
Yeah, so it really will depend on the role, right? So you might have someone who may be a network security specialist, right? So they're really going to have to know about computer networks. And you may have someone who's more on the application security side, right? And so it really depends on what role you're looking to get into. Someone might be more of a forensics person, right? So again, look at the job postings, see what might be of interest to you. See what the postings are saying, talk to the recruiters, see if you can get additional insight that might not be represented on the posting itself. But it will depend. And oftentimes the posting will tell you what hard skills they're looking for. And then, really kind of leave it up to you to also present your soft skills, like the strengths that you bring from a soft skills perspective, because that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely great. I think when we were talking about those gender dynamics and qualifications, you're right, because there's a study about how women don't feel like they're qualified and they won't apply. And most of the time I tell folks, one of my friends told me, channel your inner mediocre white man. For women, because it's true. Most of the time we're our own hurdle, right? We're talking about like, I don't know, I don't qualify, I don't know if this is enough, I don't know if I can, but a mediocre white man won't think that way. They'll be just like, no, I'm just going to apply.
I've absolutely been in situations where I've had to take a pause and think, well, what would my male colleagues do? Or what would they say? Or what would they ask for? And then again, go for it. Like, what could go wrong, right?
Exactly.
And so like apply for the job, and you might actually have the next conversation. Then go have that next conversation, and that might lead to the next conversation. And then all of a sudden you might be talking about salary negotiation. Like, you just never know how far it can go. So just go for it. And it takes courage to do, and it's uncomfortable sometimes, but just got to take the plunge sometimes.
Exactly. Great answer. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Sydney, for that question. Sydney also had a follow-up question. What are some opportunities or extracurriculars that a high schooler could take part in that revolve around clean energy or cybersecurity? So I think Rachel and Vibhu, if you both want to spend maybe a minute answering this.
Well, Vibhu, why don't you start?
Yeah, for sure. I would say thank you, Sydney, for that question. And it's something I've noticed more and more lately. In certain areas, you see there is a college degree requirement almost being asked as a minimum qualification. We have a reverse trend as well, where a lot of our postings actually show what skill set are required. And equivalent experience or equivalent professional experience is often fine and compensates for any not having the relevant college degree or an advanced degree. So since you use the word, I think mid-career,
High schooler.
high schooler, yeah. So a lot of opportunities, I would say. We have planners who started there. We have customer service positions that start there. We have some specialist analyst positions. So depending on the interest, depending upon where they want to start, I feel like clean energy and utilities is almost like get your foot in the door. Apply some of the things Rachel said. You know, starts by knowing yourself, what you're good at, just having a true assessment, and then going a little bit outside that comfort zone. That's really where all your opportunities are. You have to step out. There's nothing inside your comfort zone, and that may require for you to consciously make some efforts into like polishing your resume, applying, practicing your interview skills. How do you make your best candidate case? And when you are able to get in, you could continue education, you could continue to advance into more senior roles. The field itself has so much mobility internally in these companies that nobody stays in the same career. I was talking to someone today in my team who started with Edison in 1969. Can you imagine 1969?
Wow.
Like 52 years. It's probably, and so he was with the company. I was asking him, hey, tell me about your day one. How was it? And he was in the One Wilshire building in the downtown LA. Told me some stories back then. And then after that, he was in nuclear Navy on USS Midway in South China Sea, deployed for 10 months. And he was in the Vietnam War. By the way, on the meeting, this goes back to diversity, something I'm excited about. On the meeting, there was another woman who is part of my team, really smart regulatory senior advisor, moved to US when she was 11 from Vietnam. Her dad was part of the Vietnam War from the South Vietnamese army. So around the same time, and two of them are here in the same team and discussing. So that's where like diversity comes in, how they grew up, where the thought process came in. But anybody could be part of this world. I don't think people perfectly plan their career. This guy over 50 years, he had so many different jobs. He started as a meter reader. You don't need a college degree for that. And then today he's a senior project manager running some very, very big programs. So I'll pass it back to you, Rachel.
Yeah, so when I think about high school, I think the cool thing is there are a lot of STEM like programs, clubs, organizations, nonprofits that are serving students in high school, male and female. I mean, there's certainly a lot of like girls in code and, you know, girls for in STEM type organizations, but male or female, you're seeing robotics clubs, you're seeing, you know, a lot, and really a lot of those engineering oriented or STEM oriented clubs will have a cybersecurity element to it, or maybe they'll have a cybersecurity exercise. And if they don't, they should ask for one, right? And get it created. I think other things like science fairs, if you have a question or you have something you want to figure out, or an idea or a hypothesis, like that relates to clean energy or cybersecurity, like go pursue that. Like there are these channels and forums and projects that you can use to do that. In addition, for cyber in particular, there are like capture the flag or hackathon type events that different organizations will set up for high school kids, for college kids, for clubs that a student could also participate in, and just, you know, check things out, see how things work, try to get a question answered. And so I think there are some really cool extracurriculars and opportunities out there for high schoolers, for college students, you know, for young people who are interested in checking out these fields. So I would encourage those.
I'll add a plug-in for high schoolers. Edison also has a scholarship for high schoolers who are into STEM careers. So you know, this is something like $10,000 towards your college degree if you have a passion.
That's a good one.
So I think we give it to 30 or 40 kids every year, and diversity is a big criteria all across our service territory. But there is no age to plug into clean energy. The earlier, the better. Fifth graders can plug it. High schoolers can plug it in so many different ways. Yeah.
Exactly. We're also actually, like Girl Scouts has a cybersecurity badge and program that you have to go through to get your cybersecurity badge. I don't know if Boy Scouts has something similar, but again, there are a lot of angles and channels where the high school age, middle school age, and even into college age students can get involved.
Wow, yeah, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Vibhu, for those great resources, right? And while you're talking, I was like, yeah, that's so true. There's a lot of extracurricular clubs, right? And I think sometimes when you're bringing up for boys, and girls, like sometimes just take gender out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's a STEM club, like it doesn't matter if it's just you just see a whole bunch of guys in there. Like just take gender out of it, and just if you're interested in it, just go into it, right? And like you said, if there isn't a club for what you're interested in, look into how you can create that club, right? And there are channels. Most of the clubs that are created, not just in high school, but also in college, were from students. And there's a channel, right? It's all student driven. There's just a process, right? All you have to do is go to administration, tell them what you're interested in, find out what the process is, and create the club that you want to have, right? If it's not there, you have the ability and the power to create it in the environment that you're in. So don't let that hold you back if there isn't a club that you're seeking that that your school doesn't have. So I think that's definitely great. Some folks are always like, oh, I don't have it, like my school doesn't offer it, right? Or like any of that stuff. No, it's out there. Yeah, you can create it actually. All you need is yourself, a pen and a paper, an administrator to help you put it through, and that's it. So Sydney, thank you so much for that question.
And by the way, you build really important skills when you do something like that, when you create a club, when you lead a club, and those are things that will absolutely translate to college applications, to work, to job applications later on. So I highly encourage that. Be curious and take the initiative.
Right. And that is such an important skill, and that is super transferable in any field that you go into. I just want to, mention that I did have a friend that did that. I had a friend in UCLA. They were curious in dance, and they were a psychology major, and they went out to look for a dance club, right, where they could find a way as an outlet to help with their mental health. They're going through a lot of emotions, especially in college. Exactly. And they were able to merge those two worlds together, right? They presented a proposal to the administration saying there isn't a dance club out there that focuses on mental health and dance as an expressive way to, hone in how do we deal and process mental health. They created the club. 3 years later, they graduated UCLA. Guess what? They turned the club into a nonprofit. Wow. So now, yeah, so it just takes one person, right? Everything takes a step. If you have that passion, you're driven, you want to create something that you want that isn't there, you have the ability to do that, and it could impact the greater community. So, and it's transferable, right? So just like you said, one takeaway that I heard both of you saying is like, just get your foot in the door, right? Yeah. You don't have to essentially come in with all the skills already, right? Which a lot of folks think about. I don't have that skill. I don't know how to do that. I don't have training, right? But really all you need is an entry level, maybe just an entry level position, management even, maybe administrative, right? And once you're in the door with maybe the organization or the company that you're with, you grow from there. You find the opportunity, you already have your foot in the door, right? And you just try to find a way to grow and connect the dots to where you want to get to. So that's like a lot of big takeaways that I'm taking there that I hope the participants are also paying attention to these little gold nuggets there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you both for that. There is also a couple other questions. So Alice, thank you for your question. Alice asks, any advice for mid-career professionals considering transitioning into clean energy or cybersecurity? What are the important questions to ask to figure out which role within each area would be a good fit? Good question, Alice.
Yeah. Rachel, you want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it depends on, so if you're mid-career, you have a career path that you're on right now. So maybe there's a specific role or type of role that you've been in and are in today. So, one easy thing to do would be, is a role like that available in a, in an energy organization or a cybersecurity organization or an organization that has a cybersecurity team, right? And so that might be, so it really depends on where you're at, because we can come from an infinite number of angles here. But let's say you're a project manager right now. Well, you can look for a project management role at a cybersecurity company or at an organization, a large organization that might have a cybersecurity team. And you can use that as a way to transition in. And then from there, you may, apply your project management skills and experience, but learn the field, learn about cybersecurity. 6 years ago, I joined our information security organization. I was learning. I brought my skills, but I was learning cybersecurity. So, use that for a few years to really learn the cybersecurity space, but also learn what other roles you might be able to transition into, build a network of people who might be able to help you make those transitions. So I think it depends on where you're at today. I mean, if you're thinking about completely making a left turn, kind of, there isn't much transferability of what you're doing today, then go and look for ways to educate yourself in the field. Join those organizations, join the networking groups, go and start learning about, doing the certification training, learn about those frameworks and go out and take that, or maybe even take a class, right? There might be classes that are available to you. So it kind of depends on where you're at in terms of whether you're making a soft turn in or a hard turn in.
Yeah.
What would you add to that, Vibhu?
Yeah, no, you covered really well. Just maybe a couple of things I'll add to make it specific. When we are reviewing resumes, we are looking for experience. We are looking for transferable skills. So we are looking for what you have worked on and how you have worked on it, how you have grown through those experiences. But once the resume reviews are done and I'm meeting someone face to face and really having a conversation, I don't remember everything on their resume. I actually don't pay as much attention to which industry they are coming from. We're trying to get rid of this bias to recruit only internally and looking for true diversity of, we welcome a lot of mid-career transitions. I actually have hired some recently from very like insurance industry, somebody just joined in, banking industry, somebody joined in, and they talk about regulation in a very different way that sometimes is refreshing. It's like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. We can use it over here. We haven't, it's a heavily regulated world, clean energy and electric utilities as well. But during the interview, I'm mostly looking for like problem solving and communication. So that does not mean a bachelor's in anything. That means you don't desire an attitude. That means how you communicate, how you think through, how your thought process really works, how you handle successes in your career, how you handle failures in your career, and what you learned from it, how you evolved out of it. Did you really took some risks, and were you comfortable in not knowing what the outcomes are, but giving it your best shot, and how you look back and learn from some of those things and apply it into the next thing. So I feel like those are some of the more skills that you learn from experience, and people who have been through and have those experience of successes and some failures to build on, they will roll up their sleeves and learn the next assignment. So whether you actually know the software or the tool or the report we need you to run, you learn it. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months later, it won't matter whether you had that experience or not. What's going to matter is, are you going to continue to enhance that thing to make it better? Are you going to look at the new things that get added into it from a regulatory perspective, internal? Are you going to seek those challenges as opportunities to further advance it and share that with everyone? Are you going to help the team succeed? So those are some of the things I guess anybody could bring in from different professional background. To Rachel's point, if you don't know anyone in the industry and you're trying to come to clean energy, you do want your foot in the door. You do want to be able to get that phone call and interview call. So connect and network. AAPA is another area. Young professionals in energy, YPE. There's for people who just want to connect on energy side. Maybe go to a conference, or right now it's actually super easy to go to a conference from home, and most of them are free, not charging registration. So connect with professionals there and understand what needs they are looking for. But it's not, what I want to say is we recruit a lot externally as well, as much as, and probably more, to try and continue to bring in fresh perspective, talent, skill set. into the organization as much as internally people grow. So
thank you both for that. Yeah, thank you both. Very in-depth answers. Thank you so much for going really deep into answering these questions for folks. We have a couple more and about 5 minutes left in our Q&A session. So someone asked for Rachel, as someone who didn't have an early interest in energy and cybersecurity, were you scared or intimidated of being behind others who had pursued that interest from a young age? Good question.
Yeah, so I mean, I can tell you, like I said, from day one, I entered technology, a technical field, with no business. I thought no business being there. So I can tell you, like, imposter syndrome, day one to today. You know, and I'll be real open about it and frank about it, because, you know, kind of accidentally falling into technology when everyone around you is computer science or engineering or something, absolutely is intimidating. So, but what it really made me do was be very clear about the value that I bring. And, you know, really a lot of the kind of partnerships I've had, my more technical teammates are the ones that have given me some of that validation, where they're saying, look, they're not the ones that can pull people together and translate to the business a very technical concept, but I can, right? And I can do it with input from my very technical, you know, subject matter experts. And so that collaboration, that partnership is really what brings the team together, right? It's what makes us all, you know, contribute our own unique pieces. So it absolutely feel intimidated, but it's a matter of I can either let that intimidation and insecurity like bring me down, or I can, you know, kind of rise above it and figure out, all right, well, I'm here for a reason. So even if I feel like I'm not qualified, someone thought I was qualified. So maybe I just need to see it, you know, from that person's lens, right? And, you know, because otherwise I'm not going to be very good at what I'm doing. So absolutely. And I think it also really motivated me to just learn. And so I'm learning every day. I'm just constantly, and I'm constantly, you know, I was at Bank of America for 19 years. I did not do the same job for 19 years. I had a different job every, you know, 3 or 4 years, which meant a different opportunity to learn something new, learn a new business area, learn a new technology area, learn a new field. And so it's always kept things interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that question. And yeah, every new role, every new role is intimidating. And I think, you know, like you said, it's just being able to find that confidence within yourself. And you hit on a point that I want to stress is that sometimes others see the confidence in you before you see it, right? And so like hone in on like your mentors, right? So AAPA, you know, we have a mentoring program where, you know, a lot of our mentors are essentially trying to bring that confidence out of the mentees. Most of the time, you know, we're scared, right? We're not sure, but it's like, you do have that potential, you have that confidence, but it takes, you know, that mentor or that coach, you know, someone who sees that in you to kind of help you find that to move on to that next step.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention how you said that. It was so important. Thank you so much for that question. So great. Okay, a couple more questions. I want to make sure we get this in before our Q&A closes. So Pavitra, thank you for your question. The question is, the resume portals filter based on keywords. How do you make yourself eligible and pitch in? Most of the time, hiring managers don't connect on LinkedIn. So how do you navigate a situation like that?
Well, I'll echo what we talked about earlier. You know, tailor your resume for the job that you're applying for so that there will be more of that keyword match. And I'm not saying make it up. I'm saying make the connection, right? And so there's a connection between what you do, what your background is, what skills you have, what experience you're bringing to the job that you're applying for. There's probably a reason you're interested in that job, right? So make those connections and tailor your resume so that there is more of that keyword match. And you may not be able to access the hiring manager directly, but maybe you can connect with the recruiter, and maybe there's someone in your network that's in that organization, or maybe, you know, 2 degrees from someone in that organization. Use your network, as well. LinkedIn is great for that because it tells you, right? It tells you who's where. Vibhu, anything you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised on the part that hiring managers don't connect on LinkedIn. Not that I accept every request that comes out there, but if there's a request that comes with at least a little bit of a write-up that so-and-so is interested in this industry, or they have a desire to do X, Y, Z, and it seems pretty genuine, I think I tend to lean towards accepting requests and not accept by exception, but realizing not everyone might be the same. Use LinkedIn more aggressively. I would say that's the thing I'll add there. You could do things like make yourself more visible, that you are out there looking for jobs. I've used LinkedIn Premium. Not that by the way, not promoting LinkedIn as I don't work for them. I've used LinkedIn Premium. They typically also give you like a 30-day, 60-day free trial. So that helps you. You can send in-mails. You can do research on recruiters for that particular company with certain job titles, try to understand. And to Rachel's point, really read through the job description. That's what you have in front of you. Read, underline, highlight, print it again, read again, and figure out look at your resume, look at the job description. Think about how do I go here to there? And so what do I have that fits there? What do I need to build on? And the things in there that quite often it'll say which division, what the job requires, what the title is, or which functions it work on. Do research on those things. Read about the company. And generally, maybe sometimes even before if you have the premium, before you send the connect request, send a 3-minute readable 2-paragraph note in mail to someone with, hey, this is, are you showing that you've done some research? This is what you liked, hence you want to take an action, and really genuinely connecting to what else you want to know that could help you make that advancement and really apply. Quite often most people would reply if they feel like they can quickly help you with something, a piece of information, and they get the sense that you are genuinely driven and trying to do something. So that's definitely one area. Use your network, definitely. Get to know people in that industry. Do meet them for coffee, meet them for virtual coffee, meet them for lunches, and through them kind of build on that. It will take effort. It's not easy, and the success rate won't be high. You do 10 of these things, you might get a response in 1 or 2 of them. And by the way, my experience would say if you do 100 of these things, probably like a 10% response rate, 1% success rate. So if you're looking for that 1% success rate, be okay in having that discipline and courage and determination to continue to push yourself to get out of that comfort zone because you believe in it and you want to get there. To have the discipline to really go through all these channels and keep going on it. Don't feel like results will come in a week or a month. It might take 6 months, might take 3 years, might take 2 years, but you will build on it. And quite often, it does lead to something that you're looking for.
Agreed.
Great answer, y'all. Thank you so much for going so in depth. I want to make sure we take the last couple minutes just to answer this last question from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, for this question. So in a field with so many moving parts, units, departments, could you give us some insight on how leadership and management works between and within departments? And could you also talk a little bit in depth on your experiences moving positions or up in the chain of command, so to speak, given your leadership position? So talk about how you were saying 19 years at B of A, it was like tons of, different positions. Same thing with you, Vibhu, moving around. So I guess talk a little bit about that, but maybe just in like 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you.
I mean, I'll just really quickly, I'll say that it was not a move up, right? So my career moves have been lateral, up, sideways, diagonal, like all of it, right? And so they say your career, it's not a ladder, it's a lattice. And so for me, it's really been, I think everyone is different. I have not been singularly driven by, I want to be promoted, I want to be this title, I want to be this position. It's really been driven by, I want to do something interesting. I want to be in a role that I can contribute to, that I can lead in, and that I can feel good about and excited to wake up every morning to do, right? And so, most of the jobs that I've had within the company have come from, someone tapping me on the shoulder from within my network to say, hey, this is something, I have an opportunity. Are you interested? I'll say about 4 years, no, actually 2-3 years ago, when I took kind of the last position at Bank of America, I had been in my prior role for about 4 years, and I knew I needed to do something different. And I literally just wrote down kind of what I was looking for on a piece of paper. And I started talking to people and just saying, hey, I had the trust of my management team, it was all in the, all open. And I just started talking to people, and I was in no rush, and I was continuing to do my job and do my job well. And then all of a sudden an opportunity came up, and literally everything got checked off on my list. And you kind of put it out into the world, right? So I think it's, for me, it's every position has been something different. I've managed 300 people organizations. I've been an individual contributor, right? Just in the last few years. And so it just depends. It depends on, what motivates you, what you're driven to do, but it's certainly not a clear path up. Vibhu?
Yeah, I think it's a similar story. So 10 years in Edison, I was counting, this is my 6th job. And I don't recall applying for a job in the last 10 years. So your work speaks for you louder than anything. I think, and this is, as I previously said, I moved from an electric utility in Canada, where I was there I started really as an entry-level engineering trainee who takes some experience, and then you become a licensed professional engineer to a senior engineer to a manager, and to Edison, moved here as a senior manager. But literally, I think for me, what has worked is truly the passion for this industry. So people, life is all about the choices you make, and you can make a choice to be, I'm going to go back to say, you can become an expert in your field, in the same department, same division. You could work there for decades. Many people are comfortable that way, and they really know everything in that work, and that works. I've been, for whatever reason, I'm wired differently. I somehow move around a lot. And part of this none of this was planned, by the way. I just wanted to learn the industry. I started with literally learning how power plants work, engineering turbines and power plants and hydro side, and then building models for capacity, energy, wind integration, renewable, to then getting into procuring energy, signing long-term contracts, billions of dollars of contract, and electricity markets. That was truly exciting. Wanted to learn it all on how they are working today, how they could be working tomorrow as we get more renewables, what needs to change from a policy side, from a technology side, from a cyber side. Then moved on into asset management and generating power, to then moving on to transmission and distribution, what modern grid is needed. So literally just following the electrons on how they are generated, to how they are transmitted and delivered, to now kind of more of the business strategy pieces. How do we make sure we fund the right projects, and we balance the affordability, reliability, resiliency, customer satisfaction, all these business objectives. And the jobs that just kind of followed, because you're working on something, it's truly trying to and make provide value to the company, and you pick some new skills. And like Rachel said, things line up in about 2 to 3 years. By the time you've learned something and you're providing and going full speed there, and maybe there is a need elsewhere, and you're asked to, well, they need somebody to build that capability now and solve those problems. So it's part of it is being okay with that. Once you've learned your job, once you are comfortable, are you okay in totally becoming uncomfortable and taking that risk again? That's truly genuinely comes to me, because otherwise I'll get bored in that position and I'll feel like I'm not contributing much. I feel like somebody, I've done the improvements I could and stabilize it, and somebody else could come in and provide a different thinking and keep on evolving. So it goes back to being uncomfortable, being open to learning new things. Learning is a continuous, lifelong journey. It's not an education. It's not a degree. It's not a license. And really just building on to where your true interest and your true passions are. Because if you follow that trajectory, I think Rachel said it's not a straight line. It's your career is never going to be a straight line. It's a squiggly line. Sometimes it falls and sometimes it picks up. And if you're following your passion and your own decisions, you will be okay when it falls, because you learned something from it and you wanted it. And then you will be okay when it picks up again. But if you are doing something that's not really genuine to how you want it, then you won't be able to ride those highs and lows.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for such a great discussion, great points, such great in-depth insights on both of your personal stories and career tracks. And then, of course, diving deep into all of our participants' questions. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today in this amazing Idea Talks. I shared for our folks in the chat your LinkedIn. So if folks wanted to connect with you, feel free to connect with Rachel and Vibhu. And I also popped in AAPA's link tree. So our link tree has all the links for all of our events and straight to our social media and our website, similar to the QR code that I sent. So I just wanted to, maybe just touch on a couple points, and I want to send you all on your merry way because it is nighttime, sky has changed color. And I know some folks probably popped into this right after work, so we haven't eaten yet. And of course, I want to make sure I take the time to thank, everyone for being here today. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Vibhu.
Thank you for having us.
Popping in. Please check in with us because we have some events coming up. So similarly to what Rachel and Vibhu brought up is that utilize networking, right? Sometimes it is who you know, and thankfully AAPA is all about networking, mentoring. So utilize your ERGs, right? So your employee resource groups, and look for organizations like us, that are connecting folks and that do bring, that diverse group for you to connect with. So please check us out. We have a board leadership information session on Saturday. So if you wanted to learn more about becoming a board member and to receive training on that, you can. So this coming Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, click on our link tree and you'll be guided to sign up and register to attend. So please check us out. We're everywhere. And again, connect with Rachel and Vibhu. And I want to thank you again so much for such in-depth conversations. I know I took a couple quotes from the both of you, where it was like diversity. What did you say, Rachel? It was so good. I was like, oh, I got to write that down.
Was it the diversity without inclusion, that one?
Yeah, workforce diversity.
Oh, yes.
Cybersecurity imperative.
Yes.
It's so good, right? It is absolutely imperative. And then, of course, utilizing your network was one of them, and inclusion, right? Creating an environment of inclusion, leveling that ground, utilizing your network. And you can't do diversity for diversity's sake, because you can tell the just disingenuousness, right? So lots of gold nuggets. So thank you so much. Love this conversation with the both of you. And I hope to have you back at AAPA again. And I hope everyone that tuned in today got some very useful information. I'll follow up with a post email and of course, connect with Rachel, Vibhu, and connect with AAPA. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.